everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Nicci Chats 2. So this is a weekly podcast that I do, which is aimed at shifting people's perspectives and changing how you see the world and giving you a broader perspective and view of what's happening around you. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Nicci Stewart. I'm the owner and founder of The Why Effect, which is a company that specializes in branding and sustainability and also obviously shifting perspectives. And my guest today is Alison Meyer, and I'm thrilled to have Alison because she's the Deputy GM of Discovery Health. And one of the things that I loved about Alison when I first connected with her was this passion that she has for leadership, but from a very different perspective. So from a mental health perspective, from a physical health perspective. And I just thought this is somebody that I absolutely have to have a conversation with. And yeah, very interesting person to chat to. And I just love the story of her career journey and all of those things. So Alison is here today to share all of this wisdom and inspiration with you. So Alison, thank you so much for being here and welcome.
Thanks, Nicci. Wow, a great intro. I hope I'm not going to disappoint anybody. But yeah, looking forward to the chat. So thanks for inviting me.
Fantastic. So Alison, I mean, let's get straight into it. We had a very brief discussion when we met initially about your career journey and how you ended up at Discovery and how you ended up where you are. So just chat to me a little bit about that, because I mean, Alison and I, for those of you who don't know, we have a little bit of a strange connection in that Alison is from a small town in the Eastern Cape called Queenstown, which there are like 5 people in the world that know about, and I happen to be one of them. So I always say all roads lead to the Eastern Cape. So Alison, talk to me about your small town journey.
Yes, so I'm definitely a small town and in a group. So that in itself, I guess, is interesting. So I actually spent most of my time growing up in a small gold mining town in the Northwest Province, about 90 kilometers away from Johannesburg. And, you know, my family and I moved out there in the sort of mid-70s in the height of, I guess, a very complex and challenging time in South Africa's history. And I really loved growing up in a small town where you know your neighbors and everything is familiar to you. And there's just a sense of, you know, community, which I really adored. My journey took me to Queenstown for high school. So Queen's College, which is the boys' school in Queenstown, has got a very proud history, and the old boys support the school with a lot of passion and loyalty. And my father was a Queen's College boy. So my elder brother went to Queen's College, and you know, there was no pressure on me to go to boarding school, but you know, I think I've always just grown up wanting to keep up with my big brother or do even better. And so I insisted on going to the girls' school for boarding school. And again, Queenstown, a lovely little town in the Eastern Cape, absolutely beautiful. But going to boarding school there was not easy, right? I mean, really tough. But you certainly forge incredibly strong bonds and strong relationships, you know, with the people that you spend those years in Queenstown. The Eastern Cape really got me as the East Cape I could, and so I chose to study in the Eastern Cape, and I went to Rhodes University for a little while in Grahamstown, studying journalism. But eventually, all of that comes to an end, right? And you realize you have to get a job, and you have to stand on your own 2 feet. And so I moved to Johannesburg. And I'll be honest, I never liked the idea of living in Johannesburg because I am a small town girl. But I did it and started my career in Johannesburg, and had a great time for that little while that I was living there. But as life would have it, I found my way back to that small mining town a couple of years later, engaged and ready to get married. So, you know, that's life, right? It's all about timing and where you are and who you happen to meet along the way. But, you know, so I ended up back in Carltonville and started raising my young family there. And through all that time, I commuted. I commuted to Johannesburg every day for work, so 180 kilometers a day, and chose not to move to Johannesburg and raise my young family there. And that's how I spent 12 years of my career in discovery, was commuting. And I was supported and offered, I think, a lot of flexibility a long time before hybrid work models and things like that were even a known concept. I think I was afforded that flexibility from the business, which enabled me to be a mum, a wife, and to pursue my career aspirations. I'm now in Durban, though, as you know, Nicci. So now I'm in Durban, really blessed to be here. And again, through the discovery journey, I was afforded the opportunity to move down to Durban in 2011, and my family and I jumped at the opportunity because this really was the first time in our lives that I think career aspirations and personal aspirations collided from a lifestyle perspective. And I really couldn't be more grateful because I think living in Durban, I have the opportunity to not necessarily get the balance right. I think that's, again, a concept that is like the holy grail, but definitely better able to integrate and manage career demands with family demands, as well as my own personal I don't want to say requirements, but my personal goals of what I need to do in my life often to fill myself up so that I can be good in all those other roles that I play. And I think Durban really presents that. So very, very blessed. So that's sort of my journey. So I am still a small town girl, and moving to Durban was like moving to the big city for me. But have never looked back. So that's sort of a bit about me.
Oh, I love that. And I love this notion that obviously there were plans and that sort of thing along the way, but that things do sort of happen, because a lot of the time when I meet people who have been successful and who do have what we would normally consider successful corporate careers, they were always really clear. And it was like, I knew what I wanted to do, where I was going to go, where I was going to be, how I ended up. And, it sort of makes you feel a little bit intimidated when you're sitting there going, oh my word, like, I mean, I'm 44 years old. I still don't have all of this figured out. It's like, okay, well, I'm just dead in the water. But there is something really comforting in that. I mean, if somebody is just starting out or just finishing varsity, I mean, you went from journalism to healthcare, although it's not traditional healthcare, it's kind of the more financial side of it. But there are sort of these divergence that happen in our paths, and that's actually okay. And you can still move with them and still kind of move up a ladder or build a really strong career around that. I love that idea. Alison, how do you think this whole kind of, I mean, you spoke a lot about being community minded and being part of a community and that sort of thing. How do you think that has influenced your leadership style and how you operate as a female leader in, I mean, it's pretty much, not that we want to harp on about this, but this is very much a male-dominated industry.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, I've never felt like I work for somebody. I mean, I know I do work for somebody and I work as part of a bigger organization, but perhaps that's really the thing. I've always felt as though, I have a role to play just like everybody else. And there's importance in us all working together towards a common purpose and common goal. And, so I've never really felt like I work for somebody, and I've always tried to create an environment where those that I lead also don't sort of bow down to hierarchy and bosses and things like that, but instead, bring their part. So understand the importance of their role and just bring that part to the table every single day. So I guess in the work context, you can create a sense of community in what you do at work. And I think that's really the magic for me, is if we can create that kind of thing, then, people will never be coming to work just to do a job. I mean, nobody grows up wanting to just do a job. People grow up wanting to have an impact and be memorable and to do work that they love. Now, I mean, I'm not naive. We definitely don't do everything that we love doing all day, every day. But it's important for starters, to figure out what you do love. And I think anybody that starts out in business doesn't really know. So it's important to figure out, what do you really enjoy doing? What fires you up? What doesn't almost feel like work, like you jump at those opportunities? Then you've got to figure out if you're any good at it and does it add value? Because if you're good at it and it adds value, people are going to ask you to do more of that. Because again, I can love cooking, but I'm really bad at it, so nobody's going to ask me to do that, right? So similar in the workplace. So you've got to figure that part out, and then I think you've got to do the hard work. There are no shortcuts, right? So do the hard work, be present and mindful about where you are, and then allow, I guess, the journey to take you a little bit. My advice I always give to people is, don't be too fixed in your career goals, because you might miss opportunities. You might not be looking at something. You might not pick up on an opportunity. You might close a door that, in fact, you should have gone through. So I think I think you can only do that if you're present in the moment and doing work that, you really enjoy in the moment. If you find yourself in a position, and that's also happened, where we're doing work that we know doesn't bring out the best in us, then you've got to move. You've got to move. Again, I've been very blessed in the organization that I work in. There's a lot of opportunities to move within the business. So moving has never required for me to exit. I've been able to find what I think I'm good at and where I add value in the organization. The part about women in leadership and women in business, I think that, and maybe it's because I grew up with a brother and in a family unit where, everybody was equal. My parents never treated me differently to my brother, and so forth. Anything he did, I thought I could do, and vice versa. So coming into the business world, I didn't really notice gender differences. If I'm honest, I really didn't. I was quite naive to it. But as you sort of grow up in the business, and you start, I guess, being a little bit in tune with that, there definitely are differences, and I think that whether we like it or not, unfortunately, as women, I do think we juggle a lot more balls in terms of the roles that we play in our families, in our communities, as well as at work. And as a result, we have to work, I think, a bit harder. And I'm generalizing here, because there certainly are many men out there who have massive responsibilities as well, and so I'm not dismissing that at all, but I'm saying, I think generally, I think women do carry quite a heavy load as far as that goes. So you do have to work a bit harder, and you have to be deliberate. You have to be deliberate about it. You have to make sure that you aren't left out of conversations, that your voice is not ignored around meeting room tables. And I think meeting in formats like this, virtually, mean you have to work even harder, because it's easy to be forgotten on a screen of multiple people, so you've got to show up, you've got to prepare, and be deliberate about, the contribution that you make when you're given that opportunity. I also think you need to be mindful about, saying no too quickly to things. Our plates are full, and so people's inclinations, if they're asked to take on another project or do a piece of work, might be to say no, because you can say no. But I would encourage people to stretch and see if they can do a bit more, because it's often those added projects or initiatives that you get invited or asked to do that make all the difference, and enable you to carve out a bit of a niche in terms of your unique contribution to the team or the business. So I think that's also really important. I think that sort of has been a few of the things that have carried me, and maybe it's also, why, we'll talk about a little bit, like why for me mental and physical well-being is so important for everybody, but particularly for women, because I think, without that, it's hard to juggle all these other balls and to really, give yourself a good chance in every role that you play, mum, wife, daughter, partner, and then of course the career. It's really challenging.
Absolutely. And I love this notion of being deliberate about things. And I think that's sometimes something that, I know it's become a lot more evident since COVID. You know, people kind of deliberately designing their lives and deliberately creating what they want, that we don't sort of just fall into things and somehow end up going, oh my word, how did I end up here? But you know, where we make conscious decisions and be present and be mindful. I just want to touch on something that you said earlier, where you spoke about, so you made it in reference to goals, but you also used the word responsibilities. And, you know, I know that when you and I spoke initially, one of the things that you raised was this notion of being physically healthy and being mentally healthy. And that is actually a responsibility as a leader. So, I mean, Chat, I know you're very passionate about, I mean, I know your diet, we're going to talk about that, but I know, and this is something that you're very passionate about. So, and there is obviously this juggling. I mean, you are a wife, a mother, a career woman. So, you know, I think sometimes it's easy for somebody like me who doesn't have kids and has fewer responsibilities to go, oh, you must be fit and healthy. But, you know, when it's coming from somebody who's in the trenches, so to speak, it's a little bit easier. So talk to me about that, and how do you manage all of this? What do you do? How do you cope? How does it influence you?
So I mean, I think I irritate all my colleagues and friends around this, because I am really passionate about people taking responsibility for their health and well-being. And again, I don't want to dismiss the fact that I know there are many people who, despite their best efforts, really struggle with health-related issues. You know, and I think that's a tough position for anybody to be in. But the majority of people are able to do something about their health, right? And unfortunately, the majority of people choose to do nothing about it. And so I'm a little bit older now, right? So I think with age comes a little bit of wisdom as well. But you quickly realize as you get older, and even when you're younger, if you experience loss of a loved one or a missed opportunity, you suddenly realize how short life is, and that you don't get a lot of opportunities to do the things you say you want to do. And so if you really want that life that you dream for yourself and for your family, you have to start now, because otherwise, you know, there isn't going to be a better time. So, I mean, my journey around being very aware of how my own health affected everybody around me started when I had young children. I quickly realized, like, sure, for me to have enough energy to manage two little ones, and I did have them in close succession, so 2 children in 2 years. So I quickly realized, you know, for me to have energy to be able to be the mom that I wanted them to see, and role modeling to them required me to be doing things differently. In order for me to juggle my schedule from a work perspective, I needed to do things differently. And so I started introducing exercise into my daily routine from when the children were very little. At that time, it was challenging because I was also dealing with that horrible commute, you know, to Santon every day. So 3 hours of my day were lost every single day sitting in the car. I mean, imagine what you can do with 3 hours, right? So that was immediately in my mind when we moved to Durban, is that I have 3 hours extra in my day every day to do something valuable. And how was I going to divvy up that time? And part of that time went to family, but part of it went to me. And so as soon as we moved to Durban, I introduced a morning routine. And yes, very early in the morning, 4 a.m., get up, do some, I know, you see, everyone thinks
that is early.
Get up at 4 a.m., do a little bit of meditation, a little bit of movement, just, you know, get yourself into the right headspace. And then whatever form of exercise, was, you choose to do. Like, so for many years, I couldn't do much more than yoga because of all those years of travel. I had severe back pain. So I couldn't run and cycle and do all sorts of exciting things. So it was mainly yoga and Pilates and things like that. But that was great because it fueled me, it energized me, and it centered me. And then as soon as I was well enough and no longer struggling with back pain, I introduced running and road cycling, and I really, really love that. And so that is sort of the daily routine now, is getting up early, getting out on the road really early. I love road running. The lockdown changed that for me. I don't think I'll go into a gym again easily, if I'm perfectly honest. I love being outdoors, love road running, love cycling. At this time of year in particular, I mean, it's coming into summer. It's just absolutely stunning, and you can get up early and enjoy the start of the day. And I know that I'm better off for everybody around me if I can start my day like that. And so the reason for being up so early is because, my strategy was I've got to get up before my family gets up, so that I've got that time to prepare myself for what they need from me. I don't want to be that parent that is rolling out of bed at the same time as their school children are getting up and ready for their day. I wanted to be up early on my game so that the first thing they see and hear is sort of a home that is ready to welcome them into the day and get their day started properly. And I think I've successfully done that. I mean, they're both finishing university now, right? So I think touch wood, I think I've successfully geared them for, how to have a good day, how to start at least having a good day. And then I think it's also better for my team. I mean, I think that my team are following in my suit, and they're all doing what they can to make their day start with something that's for them and something that is healthy. And as a result, their energy is better, their focus is better, you manage stress better. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it definitely helps with stress management. And I think all of that plays into mental and physical well-being. And without that, I mean, your foundations are creaky, right, if you don't have that. So for me, that's very, very important.
I love that notion of leading by example and creating the right environment and building the right environment for people to give them the option to do what they choose. So this is how I do it. Follow my example, and I'm laying these foundations, and what you do with those foundations then kind of becomes up to you. Love that. So Alison, one of the things that you and I also spoke about, and I know you did go to university, and obviously your kids are at university, so you do have a level of formal education, but we spoke about formal versus informal learning, because this is something that is becoming more and more prevalent and more talked about in various circles, in business circles, in entrepreneurial circles. Do you actually need to go the traditional varsity route, or are there alternatives? What are your thoughts around this? As a varsity graduate, talk to me about your learning journey and how it's continued even outside of formal education.
Yeah. So I suppose that's the starting point, right? Is I don't think it ends. And I think that people should be open and encouraging of that, right? The other thing that for me is very problematic nowadays is that the majority of South African families can't afford formal tertiary education. And so I think, it's naive of us to box people in and think that everybody needs to arrive with a degree. And from there, you incorporate them into big business. I think for certain roles, there's no getting away from it. For instance, like if you're an actuary or a doctor or an accountant, obviously you've got to arrive with the right credentials. But for most people starting out in business, I think the most important thing to do is to be doing some form of learning. And there's so many things available to people nowadays. So whether it's, 1-year courses, diploma courses, and I would also argue, and again, like my own career as a case in point, what you study doesn't necessarily translate into a career. You can branch out, you can be flexible, study things that you're interested in, study things that you're passionate about. There's no doubt you're going to take elements of what you learn and apply it to the job that you do. So yeah, I think for me, it's just about this conversation of, society not almost like not shunning, but not taking as seriously people who don't have a degree, but rather take people on, their abilities. The fact that you don't have a degree doesn't mean you don't have the ability to do something. And if you land yourself in the right team, in the right organization, or even starting up your own business, and you're able to study what is right and is building towards that, then I think that's a fantastic thing to do. I mean, I've studied multiple things over the years, things related and unrelated to what I do. But it's things that you're interested in. And at the end of the day, it helps, right? Every bit helps. So I think that would also be something, I think, as parents or as people starting out to their careers, I think it's important to be learning. I mean, that must never end. So, and I think that's an important message to take away. But what you're learning, I think, geez, man, the world is our oyster nowadays. You can do things online, you can do things in person. It's just incredible. And I think that's really important. I also think, unfortunately, when people finish varsity and, if they have done the 4 or 5 years and the hard slog, I mean, they're exhausted, and then they really are often disillusioned when they try and get into the workplace and find that actually doesn't give them a huge step up a lot of the time. It might in the long game, but initially not necessarily, and that can be really hard, right? So I think it's a tough space to be in. So I suppose what I'm sort of advocating for, and please understand, I've got 2 children who, my mindset was, no, you must go to university and you must do an undergrad and you must do a postgrad. But that's not the end of the line for them. They're going to have to keep studying. They're going to have to keep learning as they go, wherever they find themselves in business. Yeah. And again, maybe it's back to the earlier points around not being too fixed on a particular path. Just because you've studied something doesn't mean that has to become your career. I think you can change your mind. And what's most important is do what you really want to do. Otherwise, you're not going to love your life most days of the week, which would be unfortunate.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's definitely a kind of a consistent theme in what you've been saying around, yes, this notion of curiosity, which I'm finding is becoming a consistent theme with every single person that I speak to, whether it's about the war in the Ukraine, the overturning of Roe versus Wade, through to these kind of leadership conversations. There is definitely this theme of curiosity, of exposing yourself to information, to learning, to all of these kind of things. But there's also very much in everything that you're saying, this notion of knowing yourself. So I heard this beautiful expression that a friend of mine who's a coach always says, and she says, you must take 100% action, be 100% committed, but be 100% detached from the outcome. So what will be, but you need to be committed and take action within that process. And it is this kind of fine balance of being deliberate, but also not being too attached, I suppose, because you don't, I mean, it's exactly what you said about not going through a door because you, at the time, you think it's the wrong door, but still actually being deliberate about, this is the decision that I'm making so that my life doesn't happen to me by accident, but not ending up being so deliberate that there isn't this flexibility and actually thinking, hang on a sec, let me just try something because it's new and it's different.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a profound statement that your friend who's a coach made, right? And I don't think it's easy, right, to not be attached to the outcome. I mean, that's really hard. That takes a lot of, I think, reflection every single day to not be attached to that outcome. Because we live in a society that is so competitive and, comparing people all of the time, and you can get caught up in that and feel that you have to fit into a particular mold, right? And I think that can take you down, unfortunately, an unhappy path potentially. I do think we don't listen to our gut instinct enough, and I think maybe that's also something that people sort of numb it down, or they try and make sense of things, even though there's this nagging feeling inside of them that, I should do this or I shouldn't do this. And I think it's important to to your earlier point, like know yourself, know when that voice is screaming at you, and that you need to just slow down and understand where that's coming from and make some sense of it, so that you can make a decision that you ultimately are going to have no regrets about, regardless of the outcome. And I think that knowing yourself takes work. It takes constant work. People are very rushed nowadays, and I don't know that they always set enough time to just, be still and think about where they're at and how they feel about where they're at, and who they're becoming on the journey, and just try and reconcile some of that, and then agree what they want to do differently, to get closer to the person that they're wanting to become. So I think that's such an important statement that you made. People can't do enough of that.
And I love what you said about trusting your gut, because I think it's one of those. Look, I don't know how you teach this, but it's definitely one of those leadership skills that I don't think is discussed enough. And yes, I do believe that these kind of things are honed over time and with experience. But if it's something that we can start trusting ourselves, because I think that's the big problem, is that a lot of the time you lose that faith in yourself, and then you start questioning your instincts, and you're getting those screaming voices. But it's trusting yourself enough and having the confidence, because let's be honest, sometimes trusting your gut is sheer unadulterated confidence to just go, I'm not doing this, or I am doing this, regardless of what the people around me are saying to me and what the information is telling me, and almost 100% uncommitted to the outcome. If it all blows up in my face, well, I'll deal with the consequences and take responsibility for that. But I'm trusting myself to go with this.
Exactly. I think you have to have passion and commitment and conviction one way or another, right? And I think that is often what I think people are missing, is that absolute conviction around why they're doing what they're doing, why they're making the decisions that they're making. And I think in leadership, people can tell very quickly when a leader is not convicted about the decision they're taking. And leadership in communities, in families, and in business is all around inspiring like a future, right? A future with hope and with opportunity. And if the leader is coming off as, not particularly excited and convicted about the direction that we're taking, then why on earth would people follow? Why on earth would people sign up to be in that team? So you've got to really be passionate about this. And in order to arrive at that place of passion, you have to have listened to those voices. So of course, the numbers must add up and the data must make sense. But then you do have to listen to those inner voices as well. Because I'm certainly one that, like, you can't fake it until you make it. You have to be real, because that's another thing in leadership. People will know if you're not being sincere with them. And I think that's really important. So, for me, those are things that I've always, when I've worked with people, or just general like leaders in the world, that, you kind of go, wow, it's those elements, those characteristics that I find inspiring. And it's those things that, I try and work on in myself, so that I can, bring that to, the people that I spend time with as well. And it's not perfect. Like, sometimes you get it wrong, right? You're very convicted about something and it goes pear-shaped. Then there's no victimitis. Yeah, you got to man up and deal with that as well, right? It is what it is, but you can't beat yourself up forever. You got to move on, right? Move on to the next thing. Lessons learned, and it's good to have those lessons learned, along the way. That also makes you better and stronger, more resilient. So it's all part of the journey. It really is a journey. I see life as a series of chapters, like a book. And you just got to know which chapter you're in, and know that the chapter will end at some point, and then you're going to go on to the next chapter. So what are you going to take with you to the next chapter, in your journey? I think that's important.
I love that. And I love what you said about inspiring the future, because I think that's quite a powerful statement. And if you look at the sort of notion of leadership and decision making, there's definitely this Venn diagram of, as you say, the data and the experience and the knowledge. But then there is kind of this undercurrent of instinct and faith in yourself, and willing to, as you said, willing to take risks and willing to have things blow up in your face and pick up the pieces and start. And, you know, I think that's one of the, I mean, certainly one of the big things that I've had to deal with is actually overcoming that fear of failure, because I reached a point where I just wouldn't do anything because I wasn't 100% sure. So it's like, well, I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to be brilliant at it. It's going to go wrong. So I'm just not doing it. You know, so you kind of have this paralysis of not moving forward because you're so afraid of it blowing up in your face.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a nice place to be, where you're not sure, right? You're completely not sure. All those instincts and voices are all in a muddle and you're not getting a clear signal. I mean, I think that happens often as well. And there's things to do about that, right? There's sounding boards, there's people you can connect with who can help you try and make sense of where you're at. I think it's always important to have those kinds of, you know, colleagues and friends along the way who can help you try and make sense of that so that you can take a step forward. Because what you can't do is stop moving. I mean, you just can't stop moving, right? Like life's going to move with or without you. So you got to keep going.
And I think it also gets back to really important what you were talking about mental health and physical well-being, because if you're not in a strong place physically and mentally, that's then just another voice or another thing that's actually contributing to the noise that's being made. I mean, if you are feeling crappy, I mean, regardless of why, I mean, I know you can still not feel great, even though you are fit and healthy, but that you're not on your best. You're not making your best decisions. You are going to question yourself, and you are going to trust or not trust your gut, because you can't trust yourself physically. So how can I move forward with this?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's the science behind it, right? I mean, obviously, like, you know, being fit and healthy, and it doesn't have to take a lot, right? I mean, people can literally do something for 30 minutes a day, and I guarantee you within a week, they will feel dramatically different about themselves physically. But there's also a mental thing around the discipline of sticking to something you promise yourself to do. I mean, you know, and that for me is why I prefer exercising first thing in the morning, because literally, you know, your start of your day, you feel like you've accomplished something significant, and that immediately affects your mindset and how you approach the rest of your day. So I know it's not for everybody. Not everybody's an early bird, and that's fine. And, you know, but either way, like, you know, accomplishing whatever it is that you've set out to around that personal goal makes you feel like you are successful, and that sets the tone for whether it's the next day or the day ahead. So from a mental and a mindset perspective, I think the physical exercise feeds into how you feel about yourself mentally. Nutrition is also really important, as is sleep, right? I mean, I think there's not a day go by that we don't see articles about the benefits of all of these things in holistic wellness. But for me, nutrition is very important. I mean, I attended a conference a couple of years ago, and one of the speakers spoke about, you know, ROI, but the return on ingestion, so not return on investment. So it's this notion of think about every single thing you put in your body. Is that going to help or hinder? You know, so I think that kind of mindfulness about what people are putting into their bodies is really important. And then, of course, Arianna Huffington, I think, is the master on, you know, why rest and recuperation is so important to you know, our overall health as well. And I mean, I completely buy into that. I mean, you know, again, at the same conference, but a different speaker, a doctor, spoke about when he has a very big day ahead of him. I mean, he gets more sleep the night before, not less, because you know, your instinct is to work longer, work harder, sleep less. Is the complete opposite. And again, I think there's science in that, in rest and recovery, to make sure that you can deal with whatever the big day is that you've got ahead of you. So I think all of that is important. And then, I mean, as you and I have spoken, you know, outside of this, I mean, you know, for me, it goes even beyond that. Like, I mean, when you think about what you're eating, think about the impact that's having on the globe, you know. So, you know, quick and easy is always going to be quick and easy. But, you know, there's a price being paid in the world for these quick and easy meals that people are choosing to eat. So I think, again, nobody is perfect, but I think to just be aware and in tune of those things, it also then puts your heart and mind at ease, knowing that your choices are not hurting other people or the world. I think that for me is very important as well, as far as like that, just being at peace with myself, or how I'm arriving. So, yes,
really being a force for good. But there's it keeps coming up, this thing of like knowing yourself and knowing what, because you mentioned you need to start your day knowing that you've achieved something. So you've achieved your meditation, your exercise, whatever that may be. But somebody else might be, maybe it feels better for me to go to bed knowing that I've done my exercises, so I prefer to exercise in the evening. But how you implement these things in your life, it kind of all needs to line up with obviously your lifestyle, who you are, your values. And when you can kind of pull all of those things together, that's when you can get, certainly not perfection, but as close as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it goes back to exactly that, like, you've got to find something that works for you, do things that not only stretch you, but bring you a lot of joy as well. And then you've got to have the discipline to keep at it, just try and keep at it. And then, of course, when things go pear-shaped, don't beat yourself up for too long, just get back at it. Every day is a new day to start, and why not just do it? And then that notion that life is short. I think life is short, so why would you not want to be the absolute best version of yourself, in all elements? So got to go all in. You have to. I mean, I'll share a quote, and I don't know who said it, but it's one that Robin Sharma quotes a lot. And it says, health is the crown on the well person's head that only the ill person can see. So, that for me has always stuck with me. This notion of I am healthy and I can do a lot, so why would I not? Because other people wish that they had your life. They wish that they could do what you could do. So why take advantage of that?
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. Alison, it's been absolutely incredible talking to you, and you've given me some real beautiful pearls of wisdom and some great insights into living my best life. And I'm feeling all inspired now to go and make myself a nice big fat healthy salad or something like that for lunch and get on my bike trainer this afternoon.
Do it. You should do it. I love it.
Do you have any final thoughts? Or sorry, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, no, thank you. I mean, thanks for, I suppose, creating this platform. I've been thinking a lot about why you call it the why effect, but I think I get it. And yeah, really, really, just from my side, I mean, it's been great to have the opportunity to connect, and hopefully one day we get to connect in person. And I hope for some people that have watched or listened, I mean, there's some pearls of wisdom that they can take from this as well, because at the end of the day, like, I'm no one special, but I do think that I've created in my own life a good life, and I think that everybody and anybody can. And yeah, you just got to believe in yourself, do the work, and stick with it, and then have faith. Have a lot of faith.
Oh, I love that, and I love that. You don't need to be somebody special to create a special life. I love that. I mean, I think that's amazing. That's really beautiful advice, and I think that's a perfect thing to close on. So, Alison, thank you so much. I know you are very busy, and I really, really appreciate your time, and it's been great chatting to you. And thank you to everybody who has joined us. I will share these videos. They will be available. If you're interested, I'll share the link to sign up to my mailing list so you can get these delivered to your inbox. But thanks very much. And I will see you all soon, and take care and go and be healthy. Do some exercise and do something to inspire yourself. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.